Hey, how's it going, guys? It is Olivier, and today, as every beginning of the month, I'll share with you my full investing portfolio update for the month of February 2025. As always, in this video, you'll discover what are the different individual companies and the different exchange rate funds that I have in my portfolio. And then we'll take a look at what is the sectoral distribution of all of my different assets. And we'll finish by taking a look at the different transactions that I've made over the past month of January. So without further ado, let's take a look at the first sector in my portfolio, which is the technology sector, where you can see that I have four of the big GAFAM, which are Apple, Meta, Google, and Amazon, as well as the EV company Tesla. And you can see that all of these companies have been able to return some tremendously great unrealized profit, where you can see that my biggest grower has been by far Meta, that has been up by over 200% on the average price that I've paid for it. However, keep in mind that all of the gain and losses that you see over here is some unrealized profit that has been accumulating over the past couple of years. So it doesn't include all the profit and all the losses that I've made by selling different shares of companies. In total, what is also interesting about the technology sector is that since it has grown so much over the past 2 years, you can see that both Meta and Tesla are currently worth slightly over 10% of my total assets each. This means that in the near future, if the stock's value continues to increase that much, I might decide to take even more profit out of it. In terms of the energy sector, you can see that I have two of the big energy Canadian companies, which are Enbridge and Pembina. With the more recent tariffs that have been imposed by Donald Trump to Canada, this could have a certain impact on the value of both of these companies that have been slightly diminishing over the past couple of days. Nevertheless, you can still see that at the moment, on the average price that I've paid for it, you can see that I'm still up by over 36% and over 88% for both of these companies. And what is also pretty interesting in those businesses is the fact that they are distributing some interesting dividends to their shareholders, which I haven't included in this spreadsheet. But eventually my goal will be to have another spreadsheet on which I can see all the monthly income that I'm able to generate from these dividends. Now jumping into the financial sectors, you can see that I have one of the big 5 Canadian banks, which is the TD Bank, as well as the insurance company Manulife. In the case of Manulife, you can see that its total value has been skyrocketing over the past couple of weeks and months, where it's up over 100% on the average price that I've paid for. But in the case of TD, we've seen that over the past couple of months and years, this hasn't been the best years for them, where we've seen the companies hasn't been able to gain a lot of value. Nevertheless, this is nothing compared to the telecom market in Canada that has been totally hammered, where you can see that on my side, I only hold TELUS. And right now you can notice that this company, compared to the average price that I've paid for it, is down close to 20%. In terms of the consumption field, you can see that I hold one of the largest convenience brands in the entire world, which is Couche-Tard, that currently represents close to 5% of my total assets. However, even if I'm still up about 33% on the average price that I've paid for it, and even if I've already took some profit out of this company, you can notice that over the past couple of months, this business has been on a quite worrying downtrend momentum, but I still have great hopes for this company that has been able to adapt its business model for tomorrow's environment. In terms of my only materials company that I have in my portfolio, it is the Savaria company, which is basically a stairlift and wheelchair company. And at the moment, on the SIS stock, I am currently up compared to the average price that I've paid for it of about 18% of unrealized profit. For the real estate investment trust business that I have in my portfolio, you can notice that I have Raocan, which represents slightly over 6% of my total assets. And on their side, you can see that I currently have about 40% of unrealized profit. Finally, the last company on my list in the super small stake that represents less than 1% of my portfolio is found in the other sector, which is the 5&+ company. And on its side, however, you can see that it has been able to perform tremendously well for the past couple of months with some unrealized profit of over 64%. In terms of the ETFs that I have in my portfolio, with no surprise, you can find that I have the Vanguard S&P 500 Index ETF with the ticker VFV. If you have followed my different videos that I've made in the past, you definitely know that it is one of my favorite ETFs to basically invest in the 500 largest American companies. And despite high tensions caused by the tariffs of Trump between Canada and the US over the past couple of days, I definitely plan to continue to hold on this ETF for the long term. At the moment, this fund currently represents close to 15% of my total assets, but I definitely want to increase this ponderation to over 25 to 30% of them. And I currently have some unrealized profit on it of over 50%. For the second ETF on my list, it is the iShares Core Equity ETF with the ticker XEQT. This one is basically an all-in-one tracking the whole global market, and on its side you can see that I only have about 3% of my assets in it. But just like for VAV, my objective in the near future will be to increase this ponderation to over 10% of my assets. And on its side, you can see that I am up on this ETF close to 15% of unrealized profit. To track the Canadian market, I have decided to pick also the iShares S&P TSX Canadian ETF with the ticker XIU. This one also has only a small ponderation of less than 4%, and I obviously want to increase this ponderation to at least 10% in the near future. And on its side, you can still see that this Canadian ETF has been able to outperform by about 3% the performance of the global ETF. Finally, I still have a few shares of the famous Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF with the ticker SCHD, but at the moment this ETF is only worth about 2% of my total assets, and I currently have some unrealized profit on it of about 18%. So overall, at the moment, you can see that my portfolio is currently worth close to $158,000 or some unrealized profit of over $61,000 or 63.59% of unrealized gain. In terms of the different ETFs that I have in my portfolio, you can see that by far the largest position that I have is found in VFV that represents over 62% of my total ETFs value. And in total, you can see that I have close to $10,000 of unrealized profit or some unrealized gain of over 35%. But at the moment, the technology sector is still by far the largest sector in my portfolio with close to 37% of my assets. In the near future, obviously, I want to increase the ETFs position that currently worth less than 25% of them. But then after, for the next positions, you can find great sectors such as the financial sector, the energy sector, as well as the real estate sector, the consumption sector, the communication sector, as well as the materials sector. Finally, for the different transactions that I've made over the past month, as you can see, I haven't made any of them. This can be explained by the fact that at the beginning of January, I have decided to sold and took some profit on multiple of my different positions, notably great American tech companies. And with all of this money, I've decided to pay back my mortgage faster, but it remains that there are still great undervalued companies that can be found on this market. So on your side, if you're looking for what are the most undervalued companies that you can buy right now in February of 2025, well, check out the video. That's gonna be right over here, and I will see you soon. Peace.